Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a frostbitten, meme-charged tale of surviving the coldest medieval nights, alongside Tung 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 Sahur, the drum-beating chaos machine from the Italian Brainrot universe. Picture this. You're in a creaky hovel, the wind howling like a TikTok algorithm on steroids, and frost is sneaking through the walls like it's got a grudge. Your breath puffs out in clouds, and your toes are already planning their escape. Honestly, you probably won't survive this without some serious grit and tongue's relentless tongue energy rattling your brain. Winter's a beast, and with tongue banging away like a one-shark percussion band, you're in for a wild ride. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're all chilling tonight. Maybe Vietnam at 10:30 p.m.? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're crammed in that straw bed, your family's warmth a fragile barrier against the cold that's seeping through the hovel's walls like a stubborn TikTok earworm. The fire's flickering weakly, and Tung Sahur's relentless tung drumming on his pot is vibrating through the straw, making your teeth chatter in rhythm. His sharky grin and Nike shoes catch the firelight, and you're wondering how this brain-rot drummer's chaos is both a lifeline and a headache. Your stomach's growling louder than the wind outside, reminding you that warmth isn't your only fight. Food's running low, and winter's barely started. The mainstream fact is that medieval peasants faced brutal food shortages in winter, relying on tightly rationed stores of grain, beans, and maybe a sliver of salted meat to make it through the lean months. You glance at the wooden chest in the corner, where your meager food stash lives. A couple sacks of barley, some dried peas, and a precious chunk of bacon wrapped in cloth. It's barely enough for your family of 5, and tongue's drumming isn't helping you focus on portion math. You're planning a thin porridge for breakfast, maybe with a pinch of herbs if you're feeling fancy. Joke number 1, you're cooking so grim, tongue's beats are the only spice you've got. You're tempted to sneak a nibble of that bacon, but you know better. Every bite's a calculation. You're thinking of last winter, when a neighbor burned through their stores too fast and was begging by February. Not you, not this time. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some peasants mixed ground bark or acorns into their bread to stretch the flour, believing it could fill bellies even if it tasted like regret. Historians still argue whether this was clever survival or a sign of pure desperation. Tongue, of course, suggests tossing in tung crumbs for maximum sahur flavor, which you're pretty sure is just dirt from his shoes. You've got a small stash of acorns hidden, just in case, but you're praying it doesn't come to that. You pull the blanket tighter, your kids' warmth from that body heat trick keeping you grounded, and try to ignore the hunger pangs shaking hands with tongue's drumbeat. You're thinking back to autumn, when you and the village scrambled to harvest and store enough to survive. The Lord took half your grain, classic move, leaving you to stretch the rest like a miracle worker. You're rationing 1 meal a day, 2 if the kids look too pale. The barley's your backbone, ground for bread or boiled for gruel. The bacon's for special days, like a saint's feast, to keep spirits up. Joke number 2, your bacon's so sacred, tongue wants to drum it a theme song. You're also hoarding a few dried apples, a treat to stop the kids whining about endless porridge. The chickens in the corner cluck softly. Their eggs a lifeline you'll lean on later. Hold that thought. You slip out of bed, the icy floor biting your feet, to check the chest, just to ease your mind. Tongue still drumming, shouting, "Sahur!" like he's hyping up the barley. The cold stings your fingers as you lift the lid, counting sacks like a miser. It's all there, but it feels smaller every time. You're back to the bed, diving into the family's warmth, and Tongue's beat follows you like a shadow. Joke number 3. Your stomach's so loud, it's trying to duet with Tongue's drum. You pull the blanket over your head, the straw jabbing your ribs, and cling to the hope that your rations and Tongue's chaotic energy will carry you through the winter's lean nights. You're curled up in that miserable straw bed, the cold biting through your patched blanket like it's got a personal score to settle. The fire's faint glow across the hovel is barely holding on, and Tung 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 Sahur's relentless tung 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 drumming is still rattling the walls, his Nike shoes tapping the dirt floor like he's hyping up a medieval rave. The wind's howling outside, sneaking through every crack. But now your family stumbles in, your spouse, 2 kids, and maybe a cousin who's been crashing since harvest. They're shivering, dusted with snow, and suddenly, Tongue's chaos is your backdrop for a new survival trick: sharing body heat. The mainstream fact is that medieval peasant families often piled together in one bed to share warmth, a critical strategy when winter turned hovels into ice boxes. You scoot over, the straw crunching like it's protesting, and make room on the lumpy mattress. Your youngest kid presses against you, their icy nose jabbing your arm, and Tongue, still drumming, shouts, "Sahur!" like he's welcoming them to a party. Joke number 1. It's like cuddling a snowman who snores, with Tongue as the DJ. You pull the too small blanket over everyone, but it's like trying to cover a cow with a handkerchief. The dirt floor's too cold for anyone to sleep on, so you're all crammed onto this bed, elbows poking and knees jostling. Tongue's perched nearby, banging his pot drum, adding a chaotic beat to your family's shivers. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some peasants believed sleeping close to others could share life's fire. Not just warmth, but a kind of spiritual strength. Historians still argue whether this was just folklore or if the psychological boost of closeness helped survival. Tongue's take? He claims his drumming vibes the cold away, which you're pretty sure is brainrot nonsense. Still, his relentless rhythm is oddly comforting, like a heartbeat against the wind's wail. You feel the kid's warmth building, slow but steady, and it's a relief. Your own heat was fading fast. The chickens in the corner cluck softly, their faint warmth a bonus you'll lean on later. Keep that livestock thought for another section. You're tempted to tell Tongue to quiet down, but his drumming's keeping everyone awake enough to stay warm. Your spouse mutters about the cold, their breath clouding the air, and you all shift closer, a human knot against the frost. The bed's straw jabs everyone, and your cousin grumbles about a particularly sharp bit. You're thinking of that hearth from earlier, wishing you could risk dragging the bed closer. Joke number 2. Tongue's beats are so loud, the cold's probably running scared. You're hyper-aware of the fire fading, and someone's got to brave the icy floor to stoke it. You draw the short straw tonight, slipping out of the pile, earning a groan from your spouse. The floor's like walking on knives, and you shuffle to the hearth, tossing on a log while Tongue drums a dramatic Tung Tung Sahur. Back in bed, you dive under the blanket, soaking up the family's warmth like it's gold. Tongue still at it, his Nike shoes squeaking as he sways. The chickens cluck in protest, and you're half tempted to invite them into the bed for extra heat. Those old peasant tricks are starting to sound good. Joke number 3. If Tung drums any louder, the hovel might just dance itself warm. You press closer to your family, their breathing syncing with yours, and let Tung's chaotic rhythm fill the air. The cold's still out there, waiting, but with your family's heat and Tung's absurd energy, you're holding the line for one more night. You're crouched by the hearth, the fire's weak glow barely holding off the cold that's sneaking into your hovel like a thief. The wind's howling outside, rattling the shutter, and your breath's puffing out in frosty clouds. Tung 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 Sahur's still at it, banging his pot drum with a relentless tung 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 that's either keeping you sane or driving you nuts. His sharky grin and Nike shoes glint in the firelight, and you're wondering how this brainrot chaos machine ended up as your winter survival buddy. The mainstream fact is that medieval hearths were the lifeblood of peasant homes, used for heat, cooking, and light, but they were inefficient, losing most warmth through the roof's smoke hole. You toss a stick onto the fire, careful not to smother it, while Tung drums a beat that sounds like a TikTok trend gone rogue. The wood's damp, hissing like it's arguing with the flames, and you're rationing every log like it's your last. Joke number 1. Your fire's so pathetic, Tung's drumming is the only thing keeping it awake. Your cloak's doing a terrible job against the drafts, and the dirt floor's so cold it's like stepping on a frozen lake. Tung's circling you, banging away, shouting "Sahur!" like he's hyping up the embers. You're half tempted to tell him to chill, but his energy's weirdly motivating. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some peasants toss dried lavender into the fire, believing the scented smoke could calm restless spirits or even warm the soul. Historians still argue whether this was just folklore or if the lavender's oils had any soothing effect. Tung, naturally, suggests chucking in a spicy twig for maximum Tung vibes. You ignore him poking the embers with a stick, but you're considering the lavender. You've got a pinch stashed from summer, and anything's worth a shot. The smoke's thick, stinging your eyes, and you're coughing like you've inhaled Tung's entire playlist. The hovel's walls are useless, frost sparkling in the firelight, and you're stuffing rags into cracks, but it's like trying to stop a flood with a napkin. You're thinking of Tralalero Tralala's chaotic wood tossing from last section. Thankfully, Tung's too busy drumming to scatter your pile. His beats are getting louder, and you're praying he doesn't knock over the hearth. Joke number 2. Tung's so extra, he thinks the fire's his personal dance floor. You drag a stool closer, its legs scraping the dirt, and huddle so near the flames you smell your cloak singeing. The cold's still winning, and you're already dreading the straw bed waiting for you. Keep that thought for the next section. You glance at Tung, who's now drumming a double-time tung tung tung, like he's auditioning for a medieval rave. The fire flickers, and you're half convinced his rhythm's keeping it alive. You're remembering the village pact. Neighbors like Widow Edith would have had this fire roaring by now, but Tung's your crew for tonight. The chickens in the corner cluck softly, their warmth a faint bonus you'll lean on later. For now, it's you and this drumming shark, fighting to keep the hearth from dying. Joke number 3. If this fire goes out, Tung's Nike shoes might be your next fuel. Hope they're flame resistant. You lean closer, the heat brushing your face, and pray this blaze holds against the winter's icy grip. with Tung's chaotic beat as your soundtrack. It's late November, and winter's hitting your village like a bad edit loop. Your hovel's a flimsy stack of wattle and daub, with a dirt floor so cold it's basically a skating rink for rats. No stone castle for you? You're a peasant, stuck with a leaky thatched roof and a single shuttered hole for a window. The mainstream fact is that medieval hovels, common from the 10th to 14th centuries, were built for ventilation, not warmth. Great for clearing smoke, terrible for keeping you from freezing. Tung 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 Sahur is already in the corner, banging a makeshift drum, probably a pot, with a stick, chanting Tung Tung Tung, like it's a war cry against the cold. His sharky grin and Nike shoes make him look like he wandered out of a meme and into your life. You're hauling in firewood, a pitiful pile you've scavenged from the forest, dodging the Lord's ban on cutting his trees. Poaching's a one-way ticket to a fine or worse. Tung's helping, which means he's tossing sticks wildly while drumming a beat that's more chaos than rhythm. Joke number 1. If your Wi-Fi drops, you're annoyed. If your fire dies, Tung's drumming won't save you. You stack the wood by the hearth, a shallow pit in the floor with no chimney. Just a roof hole that lets out smoke and lets in drafts. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some peasants believed smoke could chase away winter spirits, maybe even the chill itself. Historians still argue whether this was superstition, or if the smoke's fumes had any real effect on germs. You kneel by the hearth, striking flint with frozen fingers, sparks flying like Tung's erratic beats. He's circling you, drumming louder, shouting, "Sahur!" like it's a spell to wake the flames. You're muttering about how modern folks would cry over a busted heater, but you're fighting for survival. The kindling catches, and you blow gently, coaxing a flame that feels like a small miracle. Tung does a victory jig, his shoes squeaking on the dirt. Joke number 2. Tung's so hyped, he thinks the fire's his personal TikTok stage. You add a log, rationing carefully. One night could burn a week's supply. The wind's screaming outside, and you're already thinking of the straw bed and food rations. Keep those for later sections. You huddle close to the fire, the heat barely reaching your knees, while Tung bangs his pot drum, oblivious to the cold. The hovel's walls are useless, frost glinting in the firelight, and you're praying this flame holds. You're stuck with Tung's chaotic energy, but it's better than facing winter alone. Joke number 3. If the cold gets worse, Tung's drum might be your next kindling. Sorry, shark. You pull your tattered cloak tighter, the fires crackle, mixing with Tung's relentless tung tung tung, and brace for a night where survival's as much about grit as it is about meme-fueled madness. You're still hunched by the hearth, the fire's faint warmth a losing battle against the cold that's creeping through your hovel's flimsy walls. The wind screaming outside, and Tung 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 Sahur's relentless tung 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 drumming on his pot is either keeping you alert or fraying your last nerve. His sharky grin flashes in the firelight, Nike shoes tapping the dirt floor like he's hyping up a medieval TikTok. The fire's holding thanks to your careful rationing, but now you're eyeing the straw bed in the corner. A lumpy, frozen nightmare waiting to test your will. The mainstream fact is that medieval peasants slept on crude straw mattresses, often shared by families, with no insulation against the biting cold that turned sleep into a survival challenge. You shuffle over, your cloth-wrapped feet stinging on the icy dirt, and give the bed a skeptical nudge. The straw's stiff with frost, crunching like it's mocking you. and you know lying down will feel like diving into a snowbank. Tongues still drumming, now perched on a stool, banging out a rhythm that sounds like Tung Tung Sahur on repeat. Joke number one. This bed's so cold, even Tongue's beats can't warm it up. You shake out a threadbare blanket, patched so many times it's more stitch than wool, smelling of smoke and sheep. It's too small to cover you fully, and you're already debating whether to save your feet or your chest. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some peasants stuffed their mattresses with dried heather, believing it kept out fleas and held warmth better than straw. Historians still argue whether this was practical or just made the bed smell like a swamp. You're stuck with straw, no heather in sight, and tongues suggesting you drum the cold away by banging the bed frame. You ignore him, fluffing the straw as best you can, but it's like trying to fluff a brick. The bed creaks as you sit, a stray straw jabbing your thigh, and you're wincing like you've sat on Tongue's drumstick. You're thinking of that hearth glow from earlier, wishing you could drag the bed closer without risking a fire. The wind's rattling the shutter, and frost glints on the walls, making your cloak feel like a bad joke. You're piling on every scrap of fabric you've got, a spare tunic, a shawl, even a sack that smells faintly of barley. Tongue still drumming, now adding a sahur shout that's got the chickens in the corner clucking in protest. Joke number two. Tongue's rhythm is so wild, the straw is starting to dance out of the bed. You lie down, the mattress crackling and curl into a ball, trying to trap what little heat you've got. The cold seeping up from the straw, and you're already missing the hearth's faint warmth. You're dreading the moment you'll need to check the fire again, but sleep's a distant dream with Tongue's relentless beat. You're thinking of the family piling in soon. Their body heat's your next lifeline, so hold that thought. For now, it's just you, this frozen bed, and Tongue's chaotic drumming shaking the hovel. You pull the blanket over your face, the wool scratching your nose, and try to imagine a summer field, not this icy torture. Joke number three. This bed's so rough, you're pretty sure Tongue's drumming it into next week. You close your eyes, Tongue's tongue, 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 mixing with the wind's howl, and pray for a few hours of rest before the cold drags you back to reality. You're nestled back in that prickly straw bed, your family's warmth a thin shield against the cold that's clawing through your hovel's walls. The fire's barely alive, its glow fading, and Tung 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 Sahur's relentless tung 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 drumming is shaking the air, his Nike shoes tapping the dirt like he's remixing winter itself. Your stomach's still grumbling from the ration worries, and your tattered cloak's doing a terrible job against the drafts sneaking in like uninvited TikTok trends. You're layering every scrap of clothing you've got. A patched tunic, a threadbare shawl, and that barley sack for good measure. But the chill's laughing at you. The mainstream fact is that medieval peasants wore layered woolen clothing like tunics and cloaks. But these were often worn out, offering little protection against harsh winters. You tug at your cloak, a sad patchwork of wool that smells like sheep and despair, trying to cover a tear that's letting in an icy breeze. Underneath, your linen shirt's so thin it's practically a ghost, and your woolen hose, tied with twine, are sagging like they've given up. No fancy boots for you. Just cloth strips wrapped around your feet, already damp from a quick trip to the woodpile. Tongues drumming away, shouting "Sahur," like he's styling your misery with a beat. Joke number one. Your outfit's so chic, Tongue's composing a ballad called Rags and Tongue. You're piling on an extra tunic, one your cousin left, and it's so big it flaps like a flag in a storm. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some peasants rub their hands with crushed mint leaves, believing the scent could wake the warmth in their skin. Historians still argue whether this was a placebo or if the mint's oils boosted circulation. Tung, naturally, suggests drumming the mint into your cloak for maximum sahur drip, which you're pretty sure is just him vibing. You've got no mint, but you're tempted to try it if you can barter some from Widow Edith. For now, you're layering like a medieval burrito, hoping each rag adds a sliver of heat. The wind's howling, and you can feel it tickling your neck where the cloak falls short. You're thinking of that family warmth from earlier, grateful for the kids pressed against you, their snores syncing with Tung's chaotic beat. You're also remembering the food rations. Those barley sacks aren't getting any bigger, and you're hoping the chicken's eggs will stretch your stores. That livestock lifeline's coming up, so keep it in mind. For now, you shuffle to the hearth to check the fire, your cloth-wrapped feet stinging on the frozen dirt. The flames are low, and you toss on a small log, ignoring Tung's suggestion to drum it hotter. Joke number 2. Tung's so hyped, he thinks his beats can thaw the frost off the walls. You hurry back to bed, the cold biting through your layers like they're paper. Your spouse mutters about needing a new cloak, and you nod, knowing you'd need to trade a dozen eggs for one. Tung's still drumming, his Nike shoes squeaking, and you're half tempted to wrap his pot around his head to get some quiet. The chickens cluck softly, a faint reminder of their warmth. But right now, it's your layers against the cold. Joke number 3. You're so bundled up, Tung's calling you the sahur sandwich. You settle into the straw, pulling the blanket tight, and try to imagine summer's warmth, not this icy torture. Tung's tung 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 fills the air, a chaotic lullaby as you brace for another night of fighting winter with nothing but rags and grit. You're back in that straw bed, the family's warmth a small defense against the cold that's sneaking through your hovel's walls like a persistent TikTok algorithm. The fire's flickering weakly, and Tung 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 Sahur's relentless tung 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 drumming is shaking the air, his Nike shoes tapping the dirt floor like he's hyping up a medieval live stream. Your layered rags from last night are barely holding up, and the wind's rattling the shutter like it's trying to join Tung's band. You're thinking about the village now, a cluster of hovels like yours, all fighting the same winter. Survival's a team effort, and Tung's chaotic beats are somehow part of it. The mainstream fact is that medieval peasant communities often shared resources in winter. Firewood, food, even labor. To keep everyone from freezing or starving alone, you're planning to check on Widow Edith tomorrow, trudging through snow to bring her a few sticks or a scoop of barley. She's got no family, so the village pitches in, just like they did when her roof leaked last week. Tung's helping by drumming a march he calls Sahur Solidarity, which is mostly noise but keeps your spirits up. Joke number 1. The village is so tight. Tung's beats are practically the community anthem. You're hoping to trade some eggs with Alric for kindling. He's got a knack for finding dry wood. The communal barn, where everyone shares a fire when hearths fail, is your backup plan. And Tung's already hyping it like it's a festival. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some villages hung braided straw over doorways, believing it bound the community's strength against winter's wrath. Historians still argue whether this was symbolic or just a way to block drafts. Tung's take? He's weaving straw into his drum, claiming it tongues the village vibe. You've got a sprig of holly above your door, a nod to tradition, and Tung's drumming next to it like it's a sacred ritual. You're thinking of the barn, where you've shared bread and stories with neighbors. It's not just warmth, it's hope. And Tung's chaotic rhythm somehow fits right in. You shift in bed, the straw poking your ribs, and feel your kid's warmth tying back to that body heat trick. The fire's fading and you're dreading the cold floor, but you need to stoke it soon. Tongue's still banging away, shouting Sahur, like he's rallying the village from your hovel. You're remembering the food rations. Those barley sacks are dwindling, and you're hoping the chicken's eggs will trade for more than kindling. That livestock lifeline's coming up, so hold on to it. For now, you're focused on the village bond. Joke number 2. Tongue's drumming so loud, the Lord might tax it as a public disturbance. You're planning to visit the communal woodpile tomorrow, praying it's not snowed under. You slip out of bed, the icy floor stinging your feet, and toss a log onto the fire, ignoring Tongue's suggestion to drum it spicy. The flames flare, and you hurry back to the family's warmth, diving under the blanket. Tongue's still at it, his Nike shoes squeaking, and you're grateful for his energy, even if it's chaos. The chickens cluck softly, a reminder of their role, and you're thinking of Edith's grateful nod when you share wood. Joke number 3. The village is so close. Tongue's probably drumming everyone's dreams. You pull your family closer. The fires crackle, mixing with Tongue's tung tung tung, and hold on to the hope that together you'll outlast this winter's chill. You're huddled in that lumpy straw bed, your family's warmth a faint shield against the cold that's seeping through the hovel's walls like a bad TikTok filter. The fire's barely hanging on, its glow struggling against the frost glinting on the walls. And Tung 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 Sahur's relentless tung 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 drumming is rattling the air, his Nike shoes tapping the dirt like he's remixing the wind's howl. The village pact from last night has you thinking of Widow Edith and the communal barn, but now you're facing the grind of daily chores. Winter doesn't care that you're freezing and there's work to be done. The mainstream fact is that medieval peasants tackled grueling winter chores, like feeding animals and fetching wood, battling snow and ice with minimal tools to keep their families alive. You're mentally listing tomorrow's tasks: trudge through snow to check the chickens, break ice off the water bucket, and haul more firewood before your fingers go numb. Tongue's helping by drumming a chaotic beat he calls Sahur chore vibes, which is mostly just noise, but it keeps you moving. Your hands are already cracked from yesterday's wood chopping, and your cloth-wrapped feet are no match for the frozen ground. Joke number 1. You're so cold. Tongue's offering to drum you into a sprint just to warm up. You'll need to clear snow from the hovel's entrance too. It piles up fast, blocking the door like winter's personal barricade. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some peasants believed chanting rhymes while doing chores could make the cold listen and ease up. Historians still argue whether this was a morale booster or a nod to old pagan rituals. Tongue's take? His drumming's the ultimate chant, and he's banging away, shouting Sahur, like he's convincing the snow to melt. You're skeptical, but keep moving, picturing the chicken's feed and the pig pen's roof, which needs checking for leaks. The village helps when it can. Edith might trade an egg for help with her chores. but everyone's stretched thin. You're thinking of that communal woodpile, hoping it's not buried. You slip out of bed, the icy floor biting your feet to check the fire. Tung's drumming follows you, his Nike shoes squeaking as he sways. You toss a log on, careful not to waste it, and ignore his suggestion to drum the flames higher. Joke number 2. Tung's so hyped, he thinks his beats can thaw the whole village. You're sore from yesterday's work, your shoulders aching like you've been wrestling a snowdrift. The animals in the corner, those chickens, cluck softly. Their eggs a lifeline you'll need soon, but that's for another section. For now, you're focused on the chores ahead, like clearing a path to the well, which is probably frozen solid. Water woes are coming up. You dive back into bed, the straw jabbing your ribs, and pull the blanket tight. Your kids are snoring, their warmth a reminder of why you'll face the snow at dawn. Tongues still drumming, and you're half tempted to steal his pot for quiet. You're remembering last winter, when a neighbor skipped chores and lost their food to damp rot. Not you. Joke number 3. Your chore list's so long, Tongue's composing a saga called Sahur versus Snow. You close your eyes. The fires crackle mixing with Tongue's relentless tung tung tung, and steel yourself for the morning's grind, knowing every task is a step towards surviving this brutal winter. You're back in that straw bed, your family's warmth a small comfort as the winter's icy grip tightens around your hovel. The fire's flickering weakly, and Tung 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 Sahur's relentless tung 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 drumming is shaking the air. His Nike shoes tapping the dirt floor like he's hyping up a medieval TikTok drop. The wind's howling outside, sneaking through the walls, and you're still sore from planning tomorrow's chores. Now, your mind's on another survival trick, herbal brews to coax warmth into your frozen bones. The mainstream fact is that medieval peasants relied on herbal remedies, brewed from plants like chamomile or nettle to fight cold-related ailments and boost circulation, though results were often more hope than science. You're eyeing a small sack of dried herbs in the corner, next to that precious bacon from the ration section. There's a pinch of sage and some shriveled mint saved from summer's better days. You're planning to brew something hot tomorrow, if you can spare the water and firewood. Tongues drumming away, shouting "Sahur," like he's hyping up the herbs, suggesting you add tung-tung zest for flavor. Probably just dirt from his shoes. Joke number 1. Your tea's so weak, Tongue's beats are the only thing giving it personality. You're hoping the sage will warm your blood, like Widow Edith swears it does, and the steam might thaw your numb fingers. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some peasants believed stirring brews with a hazel twig could lock in warmth, making the drink more potent. Historians still argue whether this was superstition or a way to feel control over the cold. Tongues all in, waving a stick he claims is Sahur charged, while drumming a chaotic rhythm. You're skeptical, but might try it. Your herb stash is small, and every bit counts. You're thinking of that family warmth from earlier, grateful for the kids pressed against you, their snores mixing with Tongue's beats. The chickens in the corner cluck softly, their eggs a trade for more herbs if you're lucky. That livestock lifeline's coming up. You shift in bed, the straw jabbing your side, and picture the brew's steam curling in the firelight, cutting through the hovel's smoky air. The cold's biting through your layered rags, and you're dreading the water-fetching chore. Frozen wells are a nightmare, but that's for the next section. For now, you're focused on the promise of something warm to sip. You're remembering Edith's sage tea, how she claims it saved her through a bad winter. You'll barter for her recipe tomorrow, Maybe offer a pinch of mint. Joke number 2. Tongue's calling your brew a sahur smoothie, but it's just leaves and wishful thinking. You're tempted to check the fire, but the icy floor's a cruel deterrent. Tongue's still drumming, his Nike shoes squeaking, and you're half convinced his rhythm's keeping the embers alive. The wind's rattling the shutter, and you pull the blanket tighter, its holes letting in drafts like unwanted followers. You're rationing hope as carefully as your herbs, clinging to the thought of a hot drink. Joke number 3. If this brew doesn't warm you, Tongue's offering to drum you into a sweat. Hard pass. You close your eyes. The fire's crackle blending with Tongue's tung tung tung. And let the promise of a steaming cup carry you toward a fleeting dream of warmth in this frozen night. You're still curled in that prickly straw bed, your family's warmth a thin defense against the cold that's clawing through the hovel's walls like a viral TikTok glitch. The fire's down to embers, its glow barely touching the frost sparkling on the walls. And Tung 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 Sahur's relentless tung 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 drumming is rattling your bones. His Nike shoes tapping the dirt floor like he's hyping up a medieval algorithm. Your mind's on that sage brew you're planning. But now a sharper fear creeps in. Frostbite. The cold's not just uncomfortable. It's a predator that could steal your fingers or toes. The mainstream fact is that frostbite was a serious danger for medieval peasants, especially in Northern Europe, where freezing temperatures could damage tissue, and limited medical knowledge offered little help beyond crude raps and prayers. You wiggle your toes under the blanket, checking they're still there, and flex your hands, already chapped from hauling wood. They're numb but moving, thanks to the family's warmth from that body heat trick. Tongues drumming away, shouting sahur, like his beats can scare off the cold, but you're not so sure. You've heard stories. Widow Edith's cousin lost 2 fingers last winter, and the village healer could only mutter about spirits. Joke number 1. Your fingers are so cold, Tongue's offering to drum them back to life. Good luck with that. You've wrapped your hands in cloth strips, but they're about as useful as one of Tongue's TikTok edits against this chill. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some peasants believed rubbing their hands with warmed stones from the hearth could ward off frostbite's ice spirits. Historians still argue whether this was a practical heat trick or just desperate folklore. Tongue, naturally, suggests drumming the stones first for sahur power, which you're pretty sure is just him vibing. You're tempted to try it. There's a smooth stone by the hearth. But for now, you're keeping your hands tucked close, soaking up the kids' warmth. You're thinking of that sage brew from last section, hoping it might boost circulation. And you're praying the village pact means someone like Edith has a spare stone to share. You glance at the fire, its embers fading, and know you'll need to brave the icy floor soon. The wind's howling, and you can feel drafts sneaking through your layered rags, making your joints ache like you're twice your age. The chickens in the corner cluck softly, their warmth a faint bonus you'll lean on later. That livestock lifeline's coming up. For now, you're focused on keeping frostbite at bay. You're remembering Edith's warning, keep moving, keep warm, or the cold claims what it touches. Joke number 2, Tongue's drumming so loud, the frost might just flee in embarrassment. You shift in bed, the straw poking your ribs, and flex your fingers again, willing them to stay alive. You're tempted to check the fire, but the thought of leaving the bed's warmth feels like betrayal. Tongue still banging his pot, his Nike shoes squeaking, and you're half convinced his rhythm's keeping your blood flowing. You're planning tomorrow's defense. Stay near the hearth, keep moving, maybe barter for Edith Stone. The cold's a ruthless foe, and you're fighting it with every trick you've got. Joke number 3. If frostbite comes knocking, you'll just tell Tongue to drum it into next week. You pull the blanket tighter, pressing closer to your family, and focus on their warmth, the fire's faint crackle, and Tongue's chaotic tongue, 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 hoping it's enough to keep the winter's claws at bay for one more night. You're still huddled in that straw bed, your family's warmth a fragile shield against the cold that's sneaking through the hovel's walls like a persistent TikTok trend. The fire's embers are barely alive, and Tung 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 Sahur's relentless tung 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 drumming is shaking the air, his Nike shoes tapping the dirt floor like he's hyping up a medieval remix. The frostbite scare from last night's got you flexing your fingers, and the sage bruise still on your mind, but now you're thinking of the village's communal fire. A gathering of warmth, stories, and Tongue's chaotic energy. The mainstream fact is that medieval peasant villages often held communal fires in winter, where families shared heat and tales to lift spirits and survive the long, dark nights. You're picturing the communal barn at the village's edge, a sturdy structure with a big fire pit where neighbors huddle when their hearths falter. Tongue's already hyping it, drumming a beat he calls Sahur Fire Jam and shouting about maximum village vibes. You've been there before, trading eggs for stories while the kids play in the straw. Tonight, with your fire struggling, you're tempted to bundle up and make the trek. Joke number 1. The barn's so cozy, Tongue thinks it's the medieval equivalent of a viral live stream. You're planning to bring a couple of eggs. Those chickens in the corner are your ticket. And maybe some of that sage for a shared brew. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some villages believed dancing around the communal fire could wake the sun and hasten spring's arrival. Historians still argue whether this was a pagan holdover or just a way to stay warm and hopeful. Tongue's all in, drumming a wild rhythm and suggesting a sahur shuffle to get the fire roaring. You're not much for dancing. Your feet are still stinging from the cold. But Tongue's energy might just drag you into it. You're thinking of Widow Edith, who spins tales about outsmarting winter spirits, her voice creaking like an old gate, but lifting everyone's mood. You shift in bed, the straw jabbing your hip, and feel your spouse's breath warm against your neck. The kids are snoring, their warmth tying back to that body heat trick, and you're grateful for it. You're remembering the village pact. Everyone shares the load, and Tongue's chaotic beats are somehow part of that. You'll invite Edith to the barn tomorrow. Maybe trade an egg for one of her stories. The fire's fading again, and you're dreading the icy floor. But the thought of the barn's blaze and Tongue's drumming makes it bearable. Joke number 2. Tongue's so hyped, he thinks the barn's fire is his personal concert stage. You slip out of bed, the cold biting your feet, and toss a log onto the fire, ignoring Tongue's suggestion to drum it spicy. The flames flare, and you hurry back to the bed's warmth, diving under the blanket. Tongue still banging away, his Nike shoes squeaking, and you're half tempted to join his sahur shuffle just to stay warm. The chickens cluck softly, their eggs a currency for the gathering. That livestock lifeline's coming up. For now, you're focused on the barn's promise. Heat, laughter, and stories to push back the cold. Joke number 3. If the barn's fire dies, Tongue's probably got a sahur spark to save it. You close your eyes, the fire's crackle blending with Tongue's tongue, tongue, tongue. and let the thought of the village's warmth carry you towards sleep. You're still crammed in that straw bed, your family's warmth a faint bulwark against the winter's icy claws, while the hovel's walls let in drafts like a bad TikTok algorithm. The fire's glow is barely hanging on, and Tung 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 Sahur's relentless tung 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 drumming is shaking the air, his Nike shoes tapping the dirt floor like he's hyping up a medieval meme drop. The thought of the communal barnfire's warmth is lingering, but now you're focused on the animals in the corner. Those chickens clucking softly and the pig grunting outside in its pen. They're not just livestock. They're your lifeline for heat, food, and survival. The mainstream fact is that medieval peasants depended heavily on animals in winter, not only for eggs and meat, but for their body heat and byproducts, like manure for insulation or fuel. You glance at the chickens, their feathers puffed against the cold in their wicker cage near the hearth. Their eggs are your currency, traded for firewood or a neighbor's help, and their faint warmth adds a sliver to the hovel's heat. The pig outside, if it survives the night, is your bacon stash on legs. You'll check it at dawn, trudging through snow, because losing it could mean going hungry. Tongues drumming away, shouting "Sahur," like he's cheering on the chickens, suggesting you drum them eggy vibes. Joke number 1, your pig's so precious, Tung wants to dedicate a Tung Tung solo to it. You're planning to muck out its pen, using the manure to pack around the hovel's walls for insulation. A trick you learned from Widow Edith. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some peasants brought small animals, like chickens, into their beds for extra warmth, believing it could fend off the cold. Historians still argue whether this was practical or just a flea-ridden disaster. Tung's all for it, claiming his drumming could tongue the chickens cozy. But you're not desperate enough to snuggle hens yet. You've moved their cage closer to the fire, hoping their heat spreads. The pig's too big for the hovel, thankfully, but its pen's close enough that you hear its grunts through the wall. You're counting on its fat for lean months, maybe even rendering some for cooking or that mint-rubbing trick from earlier. You shift in bed, the straw jabbing your back, and feel your youngest kid burrow closer, their warmth tying back to that body heat strategy. Tongue still banging his pot, his Nike shoes squeaking, and you're half convinced his rhythm's keeping the chickens laying. You're thinking of the eggs you'll collect tomorrow. Maybe 2 if you're lucky. They're your ticket to the communal barn, where you'll trade for stories or kindling. The manure's another resource. You'll spread it around the hovel's base, even if it smells like Tung's worst beat. Joke number 2. Your hovel's so fancy it's got a manure moat and Tung's soundtrack. You slip out of bed, the icy floor stinging your feet, to check the chickens. Tung's drumming follows. His sahur shouts waken the hens, who cluck in protest. They're alive, their breath steaming, and you're grateful. You tuck straw around their cage and hurry back to bed, diving into the family's warmth. The water woes, fetching it through ice, are nagging. But that's for the next section. For now, it's the animals and Tung's chaos keeping you going. Joke number 3. If the chickens stop laying, Tung's offering to drum them an encore. Poor hens. You pull the blanket tight, the fire's crackle mixing with Tung's tung tung tung, and hold onto the animal's promise as you brace for another freezing night. You're still huddled in that straw bed, your family's warmth a small comfort, as the winter's icy fingers slip through the hovel's walls like a glitchy TikTok loop. The fire's down to a faint glow, and Tung 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 Sahur's relentless tung 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 drumming is vibrating through the air. His Nike shoes tapping the dirt floor like he's hyping up a medieval viral hit. The chicken's soft clucks from their corner cage remind you of their lifeline role. But now your thoughts are on water. Getting it in this cold is a nightmare, with every well and barrel frozen solid. The mainstream fact is that medieval peasants struggled to access water in winter, as streams and wells iced over, forcing them to chip through or melt snow, burning precious firewood in the process. You're picturing the village well, its surface a thick slab of ice by now, and you're dreading the dawn trek with a bucket and an iron poker. The bucket's got a crack from last winter, and you're cursing yourself for not patching it. Tongues drumming away, shouting "Sahur," like he's cheering on the ice to crack, suggesting you tongue the well open. Joke number 1, your bucket's so leaky, Tongue thinks it's a percussion prop for his next beat. You've got a barrel by the door, but it's frozen too. And melting snow over the fire eats up wood you're rationing like gold, thanks to that village pact from earlier. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some peasants believed sprinkling a pinch of barley into water as it melted could bless it, keeping it pure and warm longer. Historians still argue whether this was superstition or a crude way to add nutrients. Tongue's all in, claiming his drumming can sahur the water toasty, which you're pretty sure is just his brainrot nonsense. You're skeptical about barley water, but desperate enough to consider it if the well's ice wins. For now, you've got a pot of snow melting by the hearth. Its slow drip, a reminder of how much effort a single sip takes in this cold. You shift in bed, the straw poking your ribs, and feel your spouse's breath warm against your neck. The kids are snoring, their warmth tying back to that body heat trick, and Tongue's chaotic rhythm is somehow keeping you alert. You're planning tomorrow's water run. Bundle up, grab the poker, and pray the ice isn't too thick. Last winter you spilled half a bucket slipping on the path. Your hands still ache from it. You're hoping that sage brew from earlier might warm you post-trek. The chickens cluck softly, their eggs a potential trade for a neighbor's water if you fail. That livestock lifeline's still crucial. Joke number 2. Your well's so frozen, Tongue's offering to drum it a lullaby to thaw it. The wind's rattling the shutter, and you're tempted to check the fire. But the icy floor's a cruel barrier. You're remembering Widow Edith's trick, wrapping her bucket in straw to keep the water from freezing on the way home. You'll try it if you can spare the straw. Tongue's still banging his pot, his Nike shoes squeaking, and you're half tempted to toss his drum in the fire for warmth. Joke number 3. If the well stays frozen, Tongue's beats might just scare the ice into submission. You pull the blanket tighter, its holes mocking you, and focus on the pot's faint drip, letting Tongue's tongue and the fire's crackle lull you toward a dream of a single, unfrozen sip to carry you through the night. You're still burrowed in that straw bed, your family's warmth a quiet anchor against the winter's icy grip, while the hovel's walls let in drafts like a broken TikTok algorithm. The fire's embers are barely flickering, and Tung Sahur's relentless tung drumming is pulsing through the air. His Nike shoes tapping the dirt floor like he's hyping up a medieval meme compilation. The water woes from last night are still nagging. Chipping ice at dawn sounds like a nightmare. But now your mind's turning inward. Winter's not just a physical fight, it's a mental marathon, with the cold hunger, and endless dark weighing on your soul. The mainstream fact is that medieval peasants faced intense psychological strain in winter, battling despair from isolation and scarcity, though community rituals and shared hope helped them endure. You're staring at the hovel's ceiling, shadows dancing in the firelight, and the weight of the seasons sinking into your chest. The nights feel eternal, and you're starting to wonder if spring's just a fairy tale. Tongues drumming away, shouting Sahur, like his beats can banish the gloom. But even his chaos can't fully drown out the doubts. Your kids shift closer, their snores mixing with his rhythm, and you're grateful for their warmth. That body heat trick's still saving you. Joke number one, you're so moody, Tongue's offering to drum you a Sahur serotonin remix. You try to focus on the communal barn stories or the eggs from those chickens, but the cold's whispering that your barley sacks are shrinking. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some peasants etched simple runes into their hearths, believing they'd fend off winter's dark spirits that brought despair. Historians still argue whether these were Christian symbols or echoes of older pagan charms to boost morale. Tongue's all in, scratching a wonky tongue mark on a hearthstone with a stick, claiming it's Sahur powered. You've got a rough cross carved above the door, next to that holly sprig from earlier, not for faith, but for defiance. You're clinging to anything that keeps the darkness at bay, even if it's just Tongue's chaotic rhythm shaking the hovel. You're thinking of the barn gathering, where Widow Edith's tales and the village's laughter push back the gloom. You'll drag Tongue there tomorrow. Trade an egg for a story to lift your spirits. The kids love the fox tales, and you need their giggles to drown out the fear of running out of food. The water struggle and frostbite scares from earlier still linger, making every day feel heavier. Joke number two, Tongue's drumming so loud, he's probably scaring off the despair spirits, or annoying them into leaving. You shift in bed, the straw jabbing your side, and try humming one of Edith's spring songs, its melody clashing with Tongue's tongue, 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 but calming you just a bit. The fire's nearly out, and you know you'll need to stoke it soon, but the bed's warmth holds you for now. Tongue still banging his pot, his Nike shoes squeaking, and you're half tempted to join his rhythm just to stay sane. The chickens cluck softly, their eggs a lifeline for trades, but that's for another section. For now, you're fighting to keep your thoughts bright, picturing the barn's fire and the village's shared strength. Joke number three, if despair knocks, Tongue's beats will probably tongue it right out the door. You pull your family closer, the fire's faint crackle blending with Tongue's chaotic rhythm, and hold onto the hope that the village and his absurd energy will carry you through the winter's darkest nights. You're still nestled in that straw bed, your family's warmth a fading shield against the winter's icy claws, while the hovel's walls let in drafts like a glitched TikTok feed. The fire's down to its last embers, barely casting a glow, and Tung 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 Sahur's relentless tung 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 drumming is the only thing keeping the silence at bay. His Nike shoes tapping the dirt floor like he's hyping up a medieval meme finale. The mental strain from last night's battle lingers, but now you're clinging to a distant hope. Spring. It's a faint promise of green fields and warm sun, a lifeline to pull you through these frozen nights. The mainstream fact is that medieval peasants survived winter by fixing their hopes on spring, planning for planting season, and leaning on rituals to keep despair at bay, even when snow buried their dreams. You're picturing the fields beyond the village, now smothered in snow but waiting to bloom. You've got a small sack of seed grain tucked away with your barley, and you're dreaming of sowing it when the ground thaws. It's early February, spring's still a distant flicker, but the thought's a spark in the dark, tongues drumming a slow sahur beat, claiming it's tonguing for spring, and you're almost grateful for his chaos. Joke number one, you're so desperate for spring, tongues offering to drum the snow into submission. You pull the blanket tighter, its holes mocking you, and feel your kids' warmth, their snores blending with tongue's rhythm, tying back to that body heat trick. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some peasants mark sticks with notches to count winter days, believing it pulled spring closer, like a ritual of control. Historians still argue whether this was practical timekeeping or desperate hope. Tongue's all in, scratching a tongue mark on his drum, shouting Sahur spring vibes. You've got a notched stick by the hearth, each mark a small defiance, and it feels like progress, even if it's just you and tongue vibing. You're thinking of the communal barn, where the village plans planting. Widow Edith's already talking about her turnips, and tongue's drumming might just hype the seeds. You shift in bed, the straw jabbing your hip, and picture those fields turning green, the sun lingering past noon, the chickens cluck softly, their eggs a lifeline for trades, tying back to that livestock role, the frostbite fears, water woes, and mental battles. All those fights are fresh, but spring's promise is a light at the end. You're planning to check the seed grain tomorrow. Ensure it's safe from damp. The village pact means you'll share seeds if someone's stash fails, just like they'll share with you. Joke number two, your seeds are so precious. Tongue wants to give them their own Sahur theme song. You're holding onto the barn's stories, the kids' giggles, and Tongue's chaotic beat to keep your spirits up. The fire's nearly gone and you're dreading the cold floor, but the bed's warmth holds you for now. Tongue's drumming slows, his Nike shoes quieter, like he's sensing the end of the night. You're imagining spring's warmth, a world without frost, and it's enough to soften the chill. Joke number three, if spring doesn't come, Tongue's ready to drum up a new season himself. You close your eyes, the fire's faint crackle weaving with Tongue's tongue, 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 and let the hope of green fields carry you towards sleep. Wind down. As you drift, the hovel's cold seems to soften, the wind's howl fading to a gentle hum. The straw beneath you feels less sharp, your family's warmth a steady embrace. Picture those fields again, not buried in snow but alive, green shoots reaching for a warm sun. Tongue's drumming slows to a whisper, his sahur a soft echo, blending with the chicken's clucks and the fire's last pops. You're not alone. The village is with you, sharing wood, stories, hope. The cold can't last forever. Spring's waiting, patient and sure. Let the night wrap you gently, like a patched blanket, and carry you toward dreams of warmer days. Whisper, rest easy until the dawn.